Welcome to the Welsh School of Architecture. My name is Wassim Jabi, and I am the Director of Recruitment and Admissions in the school, and I have the pleasure to speak to you about architecture and our school for the next few minutes. I would like to ask you for a favor. I would like you to imagine a world without architects, a world without architecture. Who would build our cities? Who would think about how we want to live together? Who would organize the flow of commodities, traffic, and people? Who would create this system of extraordinary complexity? Who would consider the enclosure in which we want to spend our time, how we would relate to our outside environment, or what type of buildings best reflect our lifestyles and society? Who would address users' needs in our buildings so that we can include every member of our society? Who would think of appropriate answers to economic constraints? Who would propose adequate forms and spaces for living and dwelling? There would be no one to remind investors and developers of the need for livability and beauty. There would be no one to think about an architecture that is appropriate and safe for us as human beings, but also for the community and the natural environment. Who would think of the nature of production and work, and what are the appropriate and humane conditions to fabricate and produce? In a world without architects, there would be no one to think about how we work together or to think of community spaces that foster encounter and serendipity. In a world without architects, there would be no one to think about how we fabricate not only buildings but also furniture. Frank Gehry would not have put a smile on our face with his wiggle chair. Charles and Ray Eames would not have designed the DSR chair for mass production. We would not have the elegant precision of the Barcelona chair by Mies van der Rohe or the sumptuous curves of the Mesa table by Zaha Hadid. Who would develop innovative digital fabrication methods for the built environment? Who would think of architecture and design processes that make best use of these methods? Who would think of all the bits and pieces that form an element and how then that element forms a building? Who would care about how the building would perform once these elements have all come together? Who would think about how we treat our built heritage and how we can integrate it into our modern lives, how we can transform it to accommodate our contemporary needs and requirements? Without architects and historians of architecture, how do we know what is worth being preserved and what can be demolished and replaced? Who's better equipped to understand the value of buildings in their social and historic context? Who would study the meaning of space and the occasional need for solitude? Who would create spaces of contemplation and reflection, identity, or collective memory? Who, based on history, would develop ideas of future utopias for us? Who would aspire for innovation and transformation like Buckminster Fuller did in the 60s with his Utopia for a Better World? Who would rethink the usual, the commonplace, the ordinary? Who would create new visions for our future? Architects are often accused of being romantic idealists who want to make the world a better place, but this is literally what it is about. At the start of the presentation, I asked you to imagine a world without architecture. Now I ask you to imagine what you will contribute through architecture. Well-informed design makes the world a better place. That is what drives the Welsh School of Architecture. We have a passion for creating a built environment that enhances lives without destroying the planet. If you share this passion, then I hope you will join us. Thank you.